everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylin. I'm a PhD student in History and African American Studies at Yale University, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about resumes and academic CVs. This is something that I get asked about a lot, and it is one of the components that you'll need for undergraduate study, for applications to graduate school, law school, etc. So this video is going to be applicable to anybody in basically any field, and I'm going to be covering a variety of topics on how to draft the academic CV versus how you should draft a professional resume. Along with this video, I'm also providing a template in order to go and fill in your own information. Then you can find those on my website, and they're going to be linked down below, so you guys can go check that out. But let's go ahead and get right into the video. So first, we're going to talk about professional resumes. Professional resumes are probably the most universal form of resume and will be something that you submit for jobs, something that you may be able to submit for graduate school. Which format you end up using is largely dependent on your program. When I actually applied for my master's at Oxford as well as my PhD at Yale, I actually used a professional resume rather than an academic CV for a variety of reasons. One of them being that I didn't have a whole lot of academic experience yet. While I had my degrees and I had some honors and grants and things, I didn't have anything published. And so I had more professional experience that I wanted to convey to the committee. And so I ended up using a professional resume. So I'm gonna actually take you guys into my own resume, and some of the information is gonna be blurred out just because it is personal, but this is the template that I've built and it's available on my website. So first at the top, I have my name in bold letters, and this is in the top left corner. This is one template that you can use. I will be working on developing others, but this is one that I have used personally. And below that, I have like a basic title. So if you're applying for a master's program, say like Master of Studies applicant, or if you're applying for a PhD, say PhD candidate, or you can say if you have any other types of titles. In the next section, you want to list your objectives. So in this section, you'll kind of write something geared towards the job that you're applying for or the program. So for me, it is a very quick blurb of my research proposal, which they would have read in my statement of purpose. I just want to make sure that there's continuity throughout my application, so that way they're very aware of the research that I hope to perform and my areas of interest. To the right of that, I have a small headshot. You do not have to include a headshot, especially when you're applying for a graduate study, but this is something that does draw the eye in and is useful. So this is something that I use in like my taglines and whatnot, so it is something that you can include as well. Then to the left, we have my contact information. You want to make sure that your contact information is very clear. If you're applying for a job or you're using a professional CV, perhaps consider linking your LinkedIn. LinkedIn should have a continuity of information based on your resume and perhaps even expand upon it even further. So making sure that your LinkedIn is also well set up in collaboration with your other components in your graduate school application or your job application. You want to make sure that your email is listed as well as your phone number. You don't necessarily have to list your direct address, but I just wrote the city. Below that, I have education. So obviously my education is probably the most important part of my application going forward. So when I'm applying for grants and fellowships from this point forward, I will be using my academic CV, not this resume. But essentially this just lists all of my degrees, it lists what I've studied, and you should also include any types of distinctions or grades, honors, anything of that sort. So below this in my resume, I actually have my written work, but in the template that I have provided, just lists qualifications, both professional and technical. You don't necessarily have to have this section, but because it is an important part of the applications that I would be submitting, my written work is included. If you have publications or anything of the like, perhaps if you have kind of like a journalistic background and you want to include an important article that you've written, then perhaps list that. You can also add achievements or anything else of the like. Then below that, I have qualifications. For me, I just have my professional qualifications. I have read and reviewed countless resumes, not only as a consultant, but as an administrative assistant as well. And so oftentimes, like the part where you're saying that you're proficient in Microsoft Word, you have to be proficient in Microsoft Word. That's kind of a given. So I just don't have that section in my application because I don't think that's an important part of my skill set, because I think it's just known. For me, I have my professional qualifications, and in this section, I specifically say things such as capable of performing in fast-paced and high-stress environments, strong organizational and problem-solving skills, proven record as both an independent worker and team player with the ability to effectively and efficiently complete long and short-term projects, as well as social perceptiveness when collaborating on assignments. So this is something that I worked on with a career counselor when I was in college. If you have a career counselor at your school, then I recommend that you utilize their skill set because they're going to be able to help you draft that resume in the best possible fashion and help you indicate keywords that are going to be important for your application based on the mission statement of perhaps the job or the company that you're applying for, or the application for the program that you are applying for in graduate school, undergrad, etc. Then the next piece is work experience. So I have a lot of work experience, so this doesn't even include all of my jobs that I've had, but essentially I have listed Accepted Consulting, my consulting business, as my current position along with my PhD. So I said founded Accepted Consulting to provide one-on-one consultation services, affordable public programs, and e-products with the aim of providing access to academia for students around the globe. So you want kind of like a general mission statement or just a quick statement about what it is you do at that company. So for example, when I was working in regulatory affairs with medical devices, I said returned to blank before beginning coursework at Oxford. So I returned to this company during the 6 months between UCLA and Oxford and performed research for them. So that was something that was important to include. This is also the company I worked with before I went to UCLA. So for example, while I was there, I worked as an executive assistant. So I said served as the executive assistant to the president and chief executive officer. So just a basic overview of what your role is. And then I want you to talk more specifically about what your responsibilities were as well as any accomplishments. So for example, enrolled over 200 clients in 2020, offered bi-monthly office hours to increase access and outreach, and spoke at the Global Community College Transfer Network's Crash Course event, and hosted several public masterclasses discussing admissions, research, academic success, etc. These are just some of my most proud accomplishments as a business owner working for myself at Accepted. And then when I was working in regulatory affairs, I'll just read off some of the things I said here. So for example, provided research support on regulatory strategy products aimed at assisting medical device companies achieve a pathway to market. And then the next one says, performed research on diversity and inclusion in clinical trial schemes, incorporating my academic interests in gender and race with applicable knowledge for the development of medical practices and novel devices. This is a project I was very proud to be a part of, and it actually has come up in my graduate studies. I do mention that experience while I attend diversity committee meetings or when I'm in my seminars and we're talking about lack of representation, because this is a major issue in the medical field. And as historians, we may not even be aware of this, but because I had this particular experience, I thought that it was important for schools like Yale that I was applying to for my PhD to be aware of, that I have a slightly different understanding of research than perhaps my colleagues might. And then I also discussed my work as a professional equestrian. This is very short. I didn't think that it was super important or applicable. The resume I actually sent to Yale had a slightly longer description, but just for the sake of this video, I'm showing you kind of a basic overview of what my resume looks like. So for example, trained and competed as a freelance professional equestrian in Northern and Southern California, providing riding and coaching services to a list of over 15 clients. You want to make sure that you're also including numerical figures. So you want to say like how many clients you helped assist, how many people did you enroll in a particular study, helped accumulate X revenue on this particular project. Anything that you can kind of give a statistic or anything that you can give a numerical value, it's going to be super helpful in writing your professional resume. So that's it for the professional resume. If you want more information on how to go about this and you want perhaps other types of templates, then please go ahead and let me know in the comments down below, as well as if you want more information on how to write your cover letter. So next we're going to talk about the academic CV, and this is something that's going to be critical if you are going into the field of academia because it's going to list all of your academic accomplishments. This is a very bare bones application. You want all of the font to be the same. Essentially, you just want it to be boring, Times New Roman. You want it to have the information that's going to be necessary for any application that you're submitting, including your publications, research experience, etc. The only difference is that although it should be kind of bland and a bit boring, it needs to highlight the key aspects of your application and it needs to be visible and very readable. You want to make sure that certain things are in bold so that way it draws the application committee's attention, or say the grant committee, etc. So the way that I've laid out this format gives you that emphasis. So first you're going to include your name, and then below that you're going gonna include your current institution. If you don't have one, this is not important. You can remove this section, but you wanna make sure that you're including your email as well as your phone number. Below that, you have the optional summary. So again, similar to the objectives on the previous professional resume, you wanna include some information about your research interests, anything to basically give them more information about your background. So this can be like just a short little blurb. It should be no more than about 3 or 4 sentences. Below that is gonna be your education. This is obviously the most important part of an academic CV. This is to list all of the programs that you've been in, include study abroad programs, your bachelor's, if you have an associate's degree, if you have other types of qualifications, make sure that you're including them. You wanna state which subjects specifically, as well as the year attended. Then you wanna include your GPA or any honorary title. So for example, at Oxford, I received a distinction, but not a GPA out of a 4.0, so I would have said received a distinction. Then below that, you're gonna wanna include professional experience. So this is where I would include any of my past jobs. So this is where I would discuss accepted consulting, my professional athletic career, as well as my time as a regulatory affairs associate. And this will include a lot of the same information as your professional resume, but perhaps keep it a little bit shorter. They will likely not look at the section too critically, but it is important that you include your professional information in case that you've had an interesting background that might be applicable and might give them a better clue as to who you are and the types of skills that you may possess. Then below that, you're gonna include any fellowships and awards. So if you have multiple fellowships and separate awards such as grants, you're gonna separate these sections, but if you just have a short list, such as if you were joined Phi Beta Kappa or you received a particular prize for an essay that you wrote in your department, or you got to attend a research fellowship over the summer, these are the things you wanna include in this section. Before, I was saying that you wanna make sure that everything is very legible and readable. So this is where you wanna make sure that the first thing that you're stating is in bold. So the information that is the most important should be in bold. So for example, XYZ research fellowship, comma, and then you want to insert the date. Next, we're going to go to publications and written work. So if you haven't officially published anything, that's perfectly fine. You just want to make sure that you're including anything that was a major paper that you've written that you perhaps are considering publishing, and you want to make sure that you say, for example, not yet published or forthcoming in X journal. So you're gonna wanna include any information related to your published or written work. After that, you're gonna wanna talk about conferences and presentations. This can be anything from a small departmental conference. So for example, I did the undergraduate research conference at UCLA in the history department. So that is something that I would include. You also wanna include any larger conferences. So for example, I was accepted for a conference this last summer, but due to COVID, it didn't actually occur. So you would say, canceled due to COVID. And you want to make sure that you're including the title of your presentation, so the title of your paper. You want to include the type of conference, so you want to say the sheer annual conference. Then you want to include the location where it was, as well as the date. And then again, if it didn't occur, then you just put in parentheses canceled or declined or whatever it may be. Next, you want to talk about any teaching experience you have. This is going to be very important, especially as you enter, say, the job market, or you're applying for fellowships or grants and you're a little bit later in your career in your PhD. This is not something that I personally have any experience with yet, so this is not something that would go on my academic CV, say for the summer, but this is something that I will be adding to as I become a teacher's fellow in my 3rd year of my PhD. And the last thing to note about teaching is that many times people just list the classes that they have taught, but if you have a slightly longer list and you want to kind of bullet point it out, you're absolutely welcome to do that, whichever makes it the most legible. I included it in this particular format because this is the way that I've seen other scholars do it, but if there's another way that you prefer, you can always adapt the template to your needs. Next, you want to say if you've been on any committees. So this is going to be really important, especially as a late career scholar. So for example, I'm on the diversity committee for the history department. I also served on the Somerville College MCR committee as the vice president. So I want to include like anything where I was participating beyond my academic work. So anytime you participated in the wider university, in your college, in your department, you've participated in as a board member for a particular journal, then those are things that you want to be including, as well as any nonprofit affiliations. And lastly, you want to list any professional organizations where you are a member or if you are a co-chair, etc. So for example, I'm a member of the American Historians Association, as well as the Society for Historians of the Early American Republic. So these are things that I would list, and I would specifically say from what year to what year. And though these aren't incredibly important, especially as a young career scholar, these are things that are going to be important later down the line as you start to try to gain seniority in these particular organizations, and it'll become readily important for networking. All right, so we've now reached the end of the video. I hope that this gave you the information that you were looking for. If there was anything that I missed that you have questions about, please leave me a comment down below, or you can shoot me an email. And as I said before, there are going to be templates available on my website that you can go check out for yourself, and you can go ahead and insert your information as needed. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you guys are not yet subscribed, then please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.